Do you have anything you want to say? Just let me know. Okay. Just absolutely.
Welcome, everybody. This is such an epic masterclass for Women of Truth, revolutionizing the future of women's health, where we actually cover some very important topics
Anything you want to say
that actually have a very important message about how to integrate the body with the mind, and also where spirit meets science. Tonight we have Tania Simmons, a new powerful channel for some profound wisdom and knowledge about neurobiology, neurogenesis, and neuroplasticity. And we're very excited to hear from her tonight, one of our thought leaders working with Women of Truth for a year, to actually present some very important knowledge around how we can affect our health with our thoughts and our emotions, affecting our health. We'll learn tonight why and how that works in this masterclass. But I want you to know a little bit about Tania first. She's actually the professor of nursing at Fortis Nursing College, and she is an outstanding member in the eyes of many who know her because of her accolades and awards throughout her career. She shows a really poised and profound level of care and understanding for what it takes to be healthy in life. She's an experienced oncology nurse with a demonstrated history of working in the hospital and healthcare industry, skilled in all levels of interactive work, like how to help a team work better together. She's a public speaker. She's worked in management, healthcare, and healthcare management. And she is one of the people I interviewed for this project that actually was willing to talk very truthfully about the medical model and how it's really just not serving people at the highest level in terms of what integrative health really needs to be dealing with. So tonight she's going to share with us what is groundbreaking research really in neuroplasticity, how the brain is involved in health, and how we need to work with ourselves in order to optimize health. So thanks so much, Tania. It's an absolute honor to have you. Thank you for making the time. And over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. What an honor it is to be on the platform of Women of Truth. It's an amazing platform. Women from all over the globe are speaking, talking, encouraging, supporting other women. And I just love this model. I love the fact that we can help each other, support one another, and be for one another. So I'm excited to just dive right into this. And the women that are here and present, and obviously we've got Dr. Saf Buxey on the line, amazing, a man of empowerment, supporting women all over the world. So thank you guys for being here. I think it's a true honor. I did just recently get back from international travel, and so I please forgive me, but I'm, if I'm still acclimating and everything, my body is getting used to everything. And again, I know you guys know how that is when you travel, you feel jet lagged and whatnot. So please forgive me if that happens or if I seem like that. But we're going to talk about neurogenesis, and we're going to also talk about neuroplasticity, what that means exactly. There have been thoughts, controversies over this topic in regards to, developing new brain neurons. Is that even possible? Does the brain even do that? Are there questions of, can we repair our own brain? Is that absolutely, is that a possibility or not? There have been, you can look at a clinical study upon clinical study, and there is tons of research that actually presents the fact that yes, we absolutely do. We do. Neuroplasticity is a real thing. So let's define that first and dive into that. First of all, the father of this research is Santiago Ramon Cajal. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. From 1852 to 1935, he presented this concept or this research for neuroplasticity. Basically, his concept was, and his thought was, yes, the brain is able to produce new neurons on a daily basis. Once that neuron dies, then yes, the brain does repair itself. It does produce more neurons. And so I'm looking at the chat, so forgive me too. I'm all in this. But if you, and this is real, like I'm a real person, I'm down to earth. You guys have known that by now. FT is laughing her head off. So if you guys have any questions, FT, you're adorable. You're adorbs. I love you too. If you guys have any questions, please feel free. Let me know. This is interactive. I'm not stuffy. So just, let me know. But going back to what he has to say is he says the ability of the brain to make adaptive changes on a day-to-day basis in brain areas such as the prefrontal cortex, structure and formation of the nervous system. So that's what his research was all about and his concept. And so there were other people throughout, obviously the decades saying, other scientists and researchers saying, no, it's not possible. The brain does not develop new neurons, obviously, or repair itself. But I don't know if you guys, have you ever heard of Dr. Joe Dispenza? I'm sure you guys have. If you haven't, check him out. He is amazing. So he does a lot of research and a lot of talks in this area about repairing the brain. And we do know that it's absolutely possible. So, neurogenesis, let's define that as the formation of new neurons within the nervous system. Obviously, the cells are produced by the neuronal stem cells. And so new nerve cells are generated every day. Okay, so we're going to break this down, all right? Obviously, there are biochemical changes within the brain itself. We all know that, right? Helena, she does amazing work. She talks about this herself. I mean, she's an expert in this field. So I honor her in this regard. But okay, so let's talk about adaptive changes. What does that really mean? So what can we do better? This is where I want to tap in a little bit to, does anyone here have like a morning routine that they do like on a regular basis? Yeah, so you can unmute your mics, you can talk. Like, can you tell us a little bit about what your morning routine looks like? FD, I saw you. I'm going to volunteer you.
I saw Helena. I was like, hi everyone.
What does that look like for you?
It really depends, because as a musician, I can be very moody.
Yeah.
Ever since I came back to Cyprus, I do my best to go to the beach as much as possible.
Lovely.
Now, sometimes the moon and the weather doesn't let me see the sunrise. So if I know that's happening, I go to the mountain nearby here. So I tend to wake up anytime between 4:30 to 6 and do some meditation. I recently did the Art of Living program.
Oh, wow, wonderful.
So we have like a 40-day challenge of some meditation and breathing exercises, and then I bring the puppy to the beach, and then I come here and do the planning of the day and do some project work, and then the rest of the world wakes up and I have some friends to talk to.
Yeah, really. So you set the pace and the tone of your day early in the morning by getting out in nature, getting in the fresh air, relaxing, meditating. Okay, that's awesome. All of that is awesome. We're going to dive deep into that in just a minute. Who else has a normal morning routine? Helena, anyone else want to say what they do? Oh, you got to unmute your mic. Yeah, there you go. Hi, Helena.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hi,
welcome.
thank
Hi.
you. Yeah,
You're
Tania,
welcome.
thank you.
Yeah.
Myself, I wake up in the morning. I like it to be early, usually between 6 and 7. Do my usual grounding as soon as my feet are on the floor, my gratitude, my affirmations while I'm brushing my teeth, and then my prayers and intentions for the day. Have my walk by the sea and nature. That really is my fix. Nature's my fix. Anyone who knows me as a herbalist and holistic therapist, that's my fix every day. And especially now having a lot of online work, I need the breaks between to go outside and recharge. So yeah, being by the sea, swimming in the sea when I can. We're pretty fortunate here in Cyprus. Very good weather most
You're all
of the
in
year.
Cyprus. Oh,
Yeah.
I want to come.
But please do. Why
Oh,
not? Yeah.
Helena,
So
you're lovely.
meditation. Yeah, thanks.
You're lovely. Thank you so much. I appreciate you saying that. So you do a lot of meditation, you ground yourself, you get in nature as well. I'm hearing a lot of nature and meditation and things of that nature. All those things are very, very good. Those are environmental factors. I love what you just said about gratitude and words of affirmation. So we're definitely going to get into that and how that affects your brain when you actually voice it out, you speak it out, and you hear yourself saying those things, and how that affects you mentally, how it affects your brain. So let's get it. I'm going to go into that as well. So wonderful. Marianne, Dr. Saf Buxey, do you guys want to add anything, or not quite sure? Do you do anything special in the morning, Saf?
Yeah. I mean, I do quite a few things. I wake up, I pray every morning.
Yeah.
And I guess gratitude comes into that as well when I'm praying. But I also like to be connected as much as possible. So what I do is I phone my best friend every morning, and I speak to her, and we have a great conversation before I start my work. And I think being connected with someone like that, it starts my day off beautifully. So I pray, I get connected with my best friend, who's a wonderful woman, and I start my day. So that's what I usually do.
I think that's absolutely wonderful. I think we're going to get into that too, because people need that heart-to-heart connection. People need connection. And when we're isolated, I'm going to present a clinical study in just a bit about isolation, and we can talk about that as well. Especially through the pandemic, it's super important that people are connected. And you see, of course, you being a mental health specialist and everything, a behavioral specialist, you see that, suicide is on the rise. You see alcoholism is on the rise. You see drug addiction is on the rise. And so there are reasons for that. If anyone needs to be connected to a behavioral specialist or a drug addiction specialist, please connect with Dr. Saf Buxey, because he's excellent. So yeah, absolutely. So that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. Marianne, do you want to say what you do in the morning? Do you have something? Yeah, you'd like to share?
No, just with the change in the hours now, we're going to be starting to do dog walks again. The morning dog walks is definitely energizing, and yes, and because of the area that we're in, it's we're connecting with the nature again as well, which is something that's important for me as well.
Absolutely. When I was taking care of cancer patients, neuroscience oncology and ENT oncology is my background of 12 years. And so I worked in the Research Institute here in Columbus, Ohio. It's one of the world's best. And anyways, the reason why I'm saying this is because fresh air is so important. It's healing, right? And so that's what you're incorporating. You're incorporating exercise, you're incorporating environment, all of those really good things. So oncology patients, they really wanted to get out. The windows where I was working were extra big because it allowed more sunlight into the room for the patients, for their health and well-being. So we see sunlight, we see water is important. We see all those environmental factors being super important and having a conscious impact on our health. So we see that, like I was saying in thank you all for sharing. That's super cool. I love the gratitude, and you're just a lovely group. Like I just love you guys. Thank you so much for making this a joy for me to be just real, right? So I really love you guys. But the prefrontal cortex is where the neurons in the brain, the region that you see the neuroplasticity occurring in the prefrontal cortex. The dendrites, the changes in the dendrites occur obviously there and throughout the brain as well, but mainly the prefrontal cortex. So why is that so important? The reason is because everything you just said for your morning it actually sets the tone. And we see through clinical studies and CT scans, if anyone wants this information, I can give you clinical studies. I can give you the clinical data, so to speak, on what I'm talking about. Just DM me, have no problem doing that, okay? But we see that the dendrites grow, and your dendrites are like a tree, okay? So let's compare them to a healthy tree first. When you think good thoughts, okay, or when you say, whenever Helena says her I am statements or her morning affirmations, she's not only impacting her environment, like with the words she's speaking, okay, but she's also affecting her mind. She's affecting the biochemical release of the dopamine, the serotonin, all the feel-good hormones in her body. She's establishing her identity. But when she's speaking those words of affirmations out, what's happening is she is actually creating those dendrites to grow and be healthy as a healthy tree. And so her dendrites, literally, it creates new neural pathways, and her dendrites start to blossom. We see that because we've done clinical studies in that regard. When a person speaks negatively or says, how should I put it, gets in a negative mode of fear or fear-based emotions, we see those dendrites start to actually get small and start to double up on themselves. We see this. So in other words, we have a joke where if you want a healthy brain, you talk healthy, you speak words of life, right? Literally, we see that there's power, life and death in your tongue. That's not just something we say. That really is impactful on your body. It's impactful on, your hormones, the way that your brain releases, endorphins as well. So we see that in those cell changes. We also, I can talk on cell memory and things of that nature, but I don't want to go all into that. But we do see that happening in cell memory, where obviously we see where the stroke patient, or say a person who needs a heart transplant, we see that being, and there are two sides of this, obviously, but there are two arguments for when there's a patient that needs a heart transplant. They have a heart transplant. They didn't have any cravings for caffeine or nicotine before, but then they start to develop those nicotine addiction, or they crave a caffeine because their donor smoked cigarettes. We see that, right? Everyone's nodding. Yep, you've heard that. So we see that there is such a thing as cell memory, and so we can dive even deeper into uterine development. And I think, Helena, you could speak to this as well, much powerfully. But I think we see uterine trauma. We see even when you're speaking to the baby in the womb, how they respond, and all of that. So we know definitely there are studies on cell memory. So that's pretty important. The main thing I want to drive home here is, what can we do to better our health, especially through this pandemic? We've heard a little bit of what we're doing. Sometimes we may have really good days. Other times we might struggle a little bit, if we're honest, we're truly honest. I don't think anyone has it all together. So I like to be real and transparent. Do I know not to eat the donut that's to my left? Yes, I do know not to, but because why? White sugar breaks down my immune system. It breaks down our immunity, right? Have I done it? Yes, I have. I mean, I don't think there's anyone on this platform that can say they haven't. See, everyone's laughing. I got you. Yes, everyone's laughing. And so let's just be real and honest, okay? So we're in this together. Let's take the journey together. So let's talk about environmental factors, right? That's environmental. So we see stress. There was a study done about neuronal death, and we see that in Alzheimer's patients. We see that in Parkinson's patients. We see that stress can definitely cause neuron death. We see that. And so let's take that into a deeper level as far as through this pandemic. Okay. So how many of you at some point through the pandemic have felt isolated in ways, or, just, yeah, of course. Hello. Yes, absolutely. Thank you for being honest. Yes. And so that's why it's important. And like Dr. Seth Buxey said, that's why it's important to have that support system, whether it's through Zoom or whether it's connection by the phone or whatever. We are created for love. We are created to have a heart-to-heart connection with other people. We're created for relationship. Our cells respond to love. Our cells absolutely open up to love. And when we've been through something traumatic, there it goes again, that cell memory. That's why we have triggers, right? That's why we have triggers when we can walk into a room and we start to smell something and we're like, wait a minute, I've smelled that before. And then it triggers us, right? Or, we're around someone else and it triggers us, or they do something and that trigger happens. Well, that's why, because we have cell memory. And so we have to recognize that. We have to be self-aware, I think, especially in this era, in this time of our self-care habits, what we do, how we take care of ourselves as women and men, and the things that we're falling short in. And it's okay to have an accountability partner. I think it's super important to just have someone that you can call up and say, hey, I'm struggling in this way, or, hey, what about you? What's happening? And I have that accountability partner. And so I'm able to say, I did really good today in my workout and everything else, but I fell off the bandwagon a little bit. You know what I mean? That's important because it gives you that heart-to-heart connection. So we see there was a clinical study with monkeys done in Kenya, actually, quite a number of years ago. And what they did was they isolated these monkeys, and they couldn't take it. They found out that stress kills. We all know that. We all know that there's good stress, bad stress, but isolation takes a different form. It actually is very, very unhealthy for you. Obviously increased depression, all of that. So we see there was a study done where these monkeys were isolated and every single one of them died. Every single one of them died. And so we see that we are not created, obviously we're human, but we're not created for isolation. We're created for connection, heart-to-heart connection. We're created to have real relationship. We see also the stats where when women normally are widowed before men, and women, when they remarry, there's a stat out there that says, they live longer because they have that connection. So that's what I'm saying. When women and men have that connection, it's super important. So we have to watch out for that. We also see, let's talk about, so we talked a little bit about the feelings, obviously we're created for healthy emotion. We're created for that. We're created for love. And that's the highest frequency possible, is that love frequency. When we're flowing in that frequency, obviously our body responds even to that. We give off an energy, we give off a frequency to others that says they're welcome, they're invited, and people need that. People need that. And so that's super important. Let's talk about, so that we talked a little bit about that. We talked about when we wake up in the morning, we think positive thoughts, we're saying, positive things, we're doing our words of affirmation, having gratitude, even gratitude. There's a clinical study where it states even gratitude, words of affirmation actually makes the shift. If we're in a negative state of mind or a negative state, when we start to say, thankfulness, or when we actually have words of gratitude, we start to speak out those words, it actually creates a release of those feel-good hormones, so to speak, and creates a shift within our brain itself. And so that needs to be said. That's super important for you guys, obviously for all of us to be aware of. If you're in a state where, you're feeling stressed, or you're let me just be very real here. Today, this morning, a couple of things have occurred in my day that was unexpected. You know, and I when I'm on a platform, I don't believe in trying to have it all together. I don't think anyone has it all together. And Helena, she's laughing because I mean, no one has it all together. So I'm being very real and letting you know that even this morning, I've had very, you know, it's been lots of demands and unexpected things on me. But at the same time, I'm super grateful. I'm super grateful to be here. I'm super grateful for the opportunity to be able to pour into you, wonderful ladies and men, to be able to give, to be able to honor you, and to be able, hopefully, to be able to give you some really good information. So we see neuroplasticity. We see that it's the ability to adapt. Your brain adapts to these changes. So let's talk about your diet for just a few minutes, okay? I want to go into diet. We talked about feelings. We talked about the things that we think on really affect us as far as hormonal releases, the dopamine, the endorphins, the increased serotonin. When we think on good thoughts, that's why we think on pure and right thoughts and good thoughts, right? Because when we actually think on those things, it releases those hormones biochemically within our body, okay? So that's the frequency we want to stay on. Okay. When we have laughter and I laugh a lot. Okay. I know I'm silly, but I like it. And I don't really care if anyone doesn't like it. I love to laugh. I love to belly laugh. I love to laugh as hard as much as possible. And so the reason, but it's healthy when you see, when we laugh and when we actually start to smile, it actually sends the signal to our brain that we're happy. Even if we're not happy at the moment, when we just smile and we practice that, it actually sends a nerve impulse to our brain that says, oh, she's happy today, even if we're not. So I encourage you guys to smile, to laugh, to love as much as possible. And, you know, those people that are grumpy pants and, you know, that they just don't, they're just not in a good mood. That was me a little bit ago, actually. And then I had to train myself. I said, wait a minute. No, don't do that. And so I had to get back and sometimes we need others to help us in that way. That's why we need each other. That's why it takes a community. That's why we're not on our own. We need people. Obviously, through the pandemic, geriatric patients have been really hit, the older generation, because one, they can't get out. They have lack of transport. Obviously they're more likely, you know, with the virus to get more ill. So they're really taking extra precautions. Don't forget about the geriatric patients or your neighbors or friends around you. Reach out to them, please. Make sure that, you know, you can create a good support system for them as well. So neurogenesis is when obviously you know, creating those new neurons within your brain. So 10 ways, I'm going to give you 10 ways to grow your brain cells. Okay, so this is kind of cool. I don't know if you guys want to take notes, but so what kinds of foods do you think would help produce excellent new brain cells? What kind of foods? You can unmute your mic. Participate.
Walnuts.
Walnuts. Okay, cool. So why do I love it. Why do you think walnuts, FD? Why do you think walnuts?
The moment you said brain, I just thought of that.
Okay, cool. I love it. Like, we'll go with it. Whatever. Yes. Well, actually, omega-3 fatty acids. So yes, omega-3 fatty acids, you know, that actually plays a good part in growing your brain cells. What other foods do you think would create new brain cells?
I would like to say green foods, living foods, things that are alive.
Yes, that's exactly right. Yes. Green foods, spirulina, you know, has a really, really powerful impact on our brain cells. We see that occurring, all the green leafy foods, you know, the vegetables, kales, the spinaches, and all of that. Yes, absolutely. So very good. What about blueberries? Have you guys thought about the flavonoids, the blueberries, right? We hear that it's, excuse me, a brain food. We understand that it's within the dye, the blue dye of the blueberries, that's the flavonoid that actually helps to create neurogenesis within your brain. That's why when I was in neuroscience, we were doing leading research on cancer patients and foods, and one of those high demand foods for neurogenesis was blueberries. So if I can get you guys to eat your blueberries, eat your blackberries, eat raspberries, even put it in a couple of smoothies in a day, that actually increases neurogenesis, and it creates the growth of your brain cells, which is really cool. What about dark chocolate? Boop, boop. Yes. Yeah, yes. All the women were like, yes. Yeah, dark
Thank
chocolate.
God for dark chocolate. Can't hear you, Saf.
What were you saying, Saf? What are you saying?
I like dark chocolate.
Yes.
And coffee and fish. Fatty fish is good as well for your brains. But I'll let you.
No. That's exactly right. You're absolutely right. So coffee is very good. You wouldn't think that, but caffeine does actually stimulate neurogenesis. You're absolutely right. And your omega-3 fatty acids in your fish. Absolutely. That's excellent. Excellent. What else do you think? Can I have a couple of more suggestions that helps with neurogenesis?
Broccoli and turmeric are good.
Yes, that's exactly right. That was on my list. Turmeric. That's right. So turmeric, that's why I don't know if you guys ever make your coffee or maybe you drink your green tea. I put the turmeric in my green tea. I do add raw honey in there. And then I drink that in the morning at times. I also do smoothies in the morning. That helps a lot. And I think, Helena, since you're a herbalist, I think, what are some of the cool things you suggest?
For me personally, I take the matcha tea, which is great for hormones, especially for us women, the powder in my smoothies, along with my blueberries and berry mixtures. I alternate between spirulina, and now I'm actually on moringa. So I work with the superfoods, and I find they really help me.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with I absolutely agree with that. Can't you feel a difference? I don't know, ladies, gentlemen, can you feel a difference when you do eat those things and when you don't? Can you tell a difference? Yeah. What do you feel as far as a difference? How can you tell?
Well, definitely you're more lethargic. You're not so energized. You're more tired. You're not so calm and focused.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree with that. So I can definitely feel the difference when I eat. If I were to eat, say if I don't eat white sugar, right, for a long time, which I haven't, but then say like if I did, I can definitely feel a difference in my body. I definitely feel the difference. So all right, so great. So those are a couple of things. Those are 10 foods that we all can eat to increase neurogenesis. Super important. Your diet has a huge impact on your health. So I want to talk to what Helena was saying earlier. She was saying about the holistic viewpoint of medicine. I love specialized medicine. And what that means is I'm not going to treat FT the way I would treat Helena or the way I would treat or look at Dr. Saf, because we're all individuals, right? All our needs are unique. So I'm not going to look at you and walk in and go, oh, okay, well, and just look at you as a diagnosis. I'm going to get to know you. I'm going to get to know your patterns. I'm going to look at you holistically. And I think, and I believe is that I think we're getting better about this in medicine. I'd like to think so. And Helena, you please voice anytime you feel led to. But I think we're getting better on this. And I can talk a lot about oncology, but I think it's super important that we look at the patient as a whole, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, of course. and then in your physical body. So it's, when I see a person, I look at them holistically, and I think that's super important. So I think physicians and our healthcare workers are starting to look at that, in a more in-depth level, especially in oncology. I do see a shift to where the research is more cutting edge in regards to diet, and encouraging people in the clinic setting, more and more as far as foods, diet, exercise. Let's talk a little bit about exercise as well, and neurogenesis and neuroplasticity. So we understand, now we're shifting. We understand. So that was diet. We talked about feelings and emotions, but now we're talking about exercise. And most of you have this already in your morning routine. Super important, because as you age or as you get older, the brain tends to somewhat, how should I put this? Well, it can deteriorate. So we see that obviously with diagnoses, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. We've talked about that a little earlier. So what can we do to sharpen our brain, so to speak? Well, we can do exercise. And why is that so important? Is because when we start to move, so our brain adapts. Okay, these cells start to adapt. When we move a new way, even in exercise or a new HIIT routine or something new, our brain actually, let's think of it as plastic. Okay, it starts to expand. It starts to create new neuron pathways. It starts to actually adapt to, and that's why music therapy is so cool, right? Exactly, FD. You can talk to that. Music therapy works, right? And that's why physical therapy works in our stroke patients, right? Those stroke patients who have had a TIA and it's affected their left side. Why can we see? We can see that some patients with physical therapy do regain movement. And why is that? Why does that occur? Well, it's because of neuroplasticity. It's because when we're working with them in a physical therapy environment, and then those neurons and those pathways are stimulated, right? That opens up, right? And they're able to, their arm becomes stronger, that pathway becomes stronger. And then we see that, the more that we do that, the stronger they get. So we see that in certain patients or patient populations. That